Alright, so we're going to go through different wire connectors that are used on the ENIAC 40 and just in general connectors that you might want to use for any other printer. So here goes. These are the various kinds. We'll go through and talk about them in more detail. You get Spade Connectors, you get Quick Connects, Bullet Connectors, Crimp Connectors for jumpers, Quick Connects, the Waco style connectors, and I think fertile connectors. Again, all sorts of different connectors we'll go through. Most of them I don't remember the names. So I'll pause this here and set up in a second. Be right back. So we'll start off. The first one on the list is going to be kind of these quick snap connects. Right, these are the more common brands that are found on Amazon, called the Waco connector or Wago. Now we're not going to go into too much detail on the amp rating and the quality of the build. This is just kind of how you'd use it and why you might want to use one over another one. But the idea with these Wagos, where they come in handy, is these levers are really stiff, and I find that these don't come out even with 12 gauge wire, and then even down to like 24 gauge wire. But the idea is really that you're sticking these in, and you have really a lot of play here, and then you close them, and that really completes the circuits between those two legs. And you can see this is pretty stiff and tight here. So these come in handy kind of if you're doing quick connects and just want to see if something works. Maybe like mine at the heated bed, you're leaving it in until you actually figure out your final connector that you want to do. Take that out real quick. You got 2-pin ones here, all the way up to I think 5-pin. And you can buy this set on Amazon, or you can buy individually. Then you got kind of, I think these are the original style of what Wago used to be, when they still have them on Amazon, but they're really levers, and these are much harder to pry up than the other ones. And there's different sizes of these too. I just grabbed the 5-pin ones, but same thing. You'll stick the two in there, close the levers down, and just as snug of a fit. I haven't tried these yet, so I don't know really how forgiving they are as far as how far you have to have it pushed in, how much you have to strip your wire. But these are still pretty solid. This is not going anywhere. So probably a good option. I don't know the rating of these in particular. Maybe it says something here on the side somewhere. Let's see. Looks like 220 volt something. I can't read it. It's right there if somebody wants to try to read that. And then we'll move on to the next one. I just found these on AliExpress and just found them pretty interesting. But the way they really work is you just kind of squeeze the pin here, and it'll push the little metal tab down. And you stick that in there. There we go. Go on the other side, stick that one in there. And again, these are a little more challenging to get quite right, especially with the thinner cables, but they do certainly work. Just gotta be patient. And then they get in there. Now, these are not as tight as the Waco ones, but the kind of cool thing is, whereas the Waco ones, if I wanted to do maybe let's say for some reason I wanted to do this connector to a quick connect, I could do that pretty easily there. And done, right? It's still a pretty snug connection. And again, this one's going straight to this one's going to this one. There's no connection between these two. There's a nice little screw there in the middle if you wanted to screw it in. Whereas with the Waco or Wago and the other tab ones, I think they're Pell connectors, or I don't know exactly what they're called, but you'd have to do two separate connectors. You'd have to do this one for the red one, close this one tab, put the red one in there, and then take your two black ones and do another two separate connectors for the black ones here. And close down. So that might work for you for what you want to do, and that might be fine if you don't mind that kind of Y connection. But in some cases, these are a little more handy, and they come in these I think just 4 strips. I think they come in up to 8 and 12 and longer. I just kind of a mixed bag of 2 and 4s. And I'll pause here and go on to the next connector type. Alright, so these I don't remember even what they're called, but just found them on AliExpress by searching wire connectors. If you're curious, I can find the link. But these just really work by pushing it in your wire, and I think just hoping that it doesn't go anywhere. Now these are all, from what I can tell, these are all 4 connected together, which I guess is kind of cool if you want to put 4 of them, but you know, it's hit or miss. You know, the black one's not going anywhere, it's pretty stuck in there, but this red one's not wanting to stick in that one, not wanting really want to go in that one, right? So maybe you have to twist this and have it perfectly set up. And there you go, right? So you hear a little kind of tabbing, clicking when it goes in there, and it's not that sturdy. They make these big ones too, which is probably not going to work, but you know, these are for the bigger gauge wires as well, if you wanted to. I haven't used these yet, but just figure they might be handy if you just want a quick connection, don't want to mess with the levers of the Wago ones. I'm not too crazy about these because, as you can tell, you know, they hold but not very tight. So I don't like the idea that something can come, you can disconnect it so easily. But these are cheap. I think this was $1 for the full kit, and like 50 cents for, I think, like 10 of these big ones. So another option you have is barrier strips. Now these come in variable lengths, and I think this is a 8 position. There's 3, there's 4 positions, all sorts of stuff, right? You can do these barrier connectors if you wanted to connect them together. And then these come in different lengths. You can cut them, you know. But the idea is if you wanted these all to be, you know, maybe an 8-to-1 connection where you had your 12-volt line coming in here, and then these rest of them to be 12 volt, you would use this connector here. Or maybe you just want to connect these 4 and have these 4 be ground, these be independent. The way that these are connected is, let me focus here, but they're actually connected vertically, so these are connected together, right? And again, you can do these and then make them connected horizontally as well, but they're each one individually, so that might come in handy. You know, I'm thinking maybe if you want to connect all your, you know, your steppers, you know, you might have, you know, maybe one of your steppers connected to here, these 4, the other 4 to here, and then maybe these go to your connector that might go to your board, and these connect to your board, so that way it's maybe easy for you to swap out your connectors depending on what board you're using. So lots of different applications. I haven't used these yet. Some of them do have a plastic cover that sits on top where you can print one. That certainly is handy. Then there's these kind of cheap, really simple ones. I guess you can probably just take these apart as you need to, but it seems like they have these little tiny screws on, and you kind of just shove the cable in there and then tighten the screw down on there. I don't know how reliable these are, but just thought they were pretty handy because they seem to flex and be a little more forgiving than these big ones. But again, these are connected vertically. So next one of these connectors, I think these are called fernal tubes or fernal tubes. I don't remember the exact name, but you know, the idea of these is that if you wanted to, if you're maybe having a hard time getting your 12 or 16 gauge wire, and again, this is a smaller wire, so not the best example, but if you're trying to get that wire in there and it's not quite going in right, and you know, you've unscrewed these, of course, and you're still having a hard time, you could use these fernal ones, of course. Make sure you use the right gauge, and maybe let's say it's these yellow ones, and you could just kind of, you crimp these on your wire. Again, I'm doing this quickly, so you take your time, pick the right size, you'd crimp it, and then you stick it in there, and at least that way you had a better connection, maybe that's not fraying or anything like that. So these might come in handy. These are cheap kits. I don't know the quality of them yet. They seem to be very basic. I think these might be heat shrinkable, I'm not sure, but there's really not much area in there to crimp, so I'd rather not use them if I can get the entire wire in here completely like that. So just nice to have. So next one up is XT30 connectors and XT60. So these are, you know, usually used for heat beds, I guess up to 60 amps, right? You have your female, or this is the male one. I was going to be confused. Somebody will correct me. And somewhere in here the other one. Right, these are keyed, so it's nice. You know, even though the heat bed, maybe you don't need a keyed connector, but it's nice that you just make sure that you always put it the right way. They have a really nice snug fit to them. Sometimes a little hard to get in there, but once they're in, it's not even in all the way, but once they're in, they really don't come out very easily. So that's nice to use. You do solder these on, you do not crimp them. I made that mistake, and they came right off. So don't crimp, make sure you solder these. Same thing for the 30s. These I actually do recommend using the 30s on the wiring that you use for the hot end, or specifically for the hot end heater cartridge. 30 amps, nice and small. They fit in the tubing very easily. I think these are more than sufficient for most use cases. I would only use the 60 on the heat bed just to distinguish that, hey, this is the heat bed one. Don't accidentally plug it into the hot end one and possibly screw something up there. So maybe just to distinguish, use the 60 on the hot bed or heat bed and the 30 on the extruder or heater cartridge. Alright, so this is just your common variety set from Amazon of different quick connects, or different Spade connectors. I don't know the name of all of these, but these basically regularly round connectors. So these are handy to have for your power supply. You actually have to remove the screw and then put the screw through here and then tighten down around it. So I like that because it's a little more work, but it makes sure that the screw does not come out, or the connector itself does not come out, unless you unscrew it from the power supply. You can certainly use, I don't even know if I have them here, but there's other connectors that you could use, right? The ones that look like kind of like forks, almost like a fork with two prongs on there. You could use those. Again, I don't really care to. I prefer to these round ones that are here. And then again, just the color depends on the gauge. You could use bullet connectors, or not those. Use bullet connectors sometimes. Depending on the connection that you have, right? Instead, maybe you're using an XT30 or one of the other quick connects. Maybe you want to use the bullet connectors. I didn't really use any of these on the build. I primarily used these circle ones, right? Mostly the blue ones, because I was using on 12 and 16 gauge, and that seems to be what fit. And then these, not these unshielded ones, but actually looks like that. You want to use these. What are they? These nice shielded ones, right? So these will go right over your power inlets that you have on the back. So if you've seen the back of my power connection, we actually use these, and they give you a nice solid connection in there. They don't go anywhere, and a nice shielding on there to protect any curious fingers. And there's different types, right? This one's the shielding on here is, I guess, a little more malleable, and these supposedly last a little bit longer. Both on Amazon.